Hey guys, welcome back to Curling Class. My name is Matt Bean, and today I want to talk a little bit about shot selection and how do teams decide which shot to make. So with my little presentation today, I want to include the Daily Curling Puzzle Facebook page scenario, the last scenario that was given. It's May 5th today. So I've set that up on the board here. You can take a look here at the board. Of the scenario that we have. It's the second shot. We're red, they're yellow, and blue in this case here on my table because I have blue stones. But it's our second shot. So it's the fifth end. We're all tied up. Which shot are we going to make? Now, one of the problems I have with this and asking someone which shot would you make is that there's a lot of information that needs to be known first. Okay, and so that's what I want to cover today. Is what do we need to know before we make a shot selection? So Doug kindly noted that they are putting up a lot of guards, he says. So that kind of tells me, well, maybe they're being aggressive. They're trying to generate some points. But it's the fifth end of the match. Maybe that wasn't the way they were playing at the beginning of the match. Maybe it was. He said guards. I assume they're being kind of aggressive the whole match so far. It's the fifth end. The score is tied. Okay. That doesn't give us much information though. Is it tied at 1-1 or is it tied at 8-8? I need to know if the other team is aggressive or if my team's aggressive. I don't know anything about either of these teams. So let's take a few steps back. What do we need to know before we get out onto the ice? We need to know the strategic profile of our team. What are our strengths and our weaknesses? Now, every team's going to have strengths and weaknesses, and so you need to know what yours are. And of course, you can work on your weaknesses, but you need to know that you do have some. Maybe you have one or two in there. Anyway, so what is the strategic profile of my team or of your team? You know, are you a defense? Should you take a defensive first approach, or should you take an offensive first approach? Or maybe you want to try a blended approach, you know, so you can kind of probe and maybe be offensive, or conservatively you can kind of be malleable in that regard. So we need to know the strategic profile of our team. What would be really useful is if we knew the strategic profile of our opponents. You know, and that's not always the case, but sometimes we do, and a lot of times we do, especially these high-level teams. They already know how the other teams kind of play. You know, are they aggressive or are they conservative for the most part? So if we know the strategic profile of ourselves and of our team, then we can go ahead and make a game plan. So what is our game plan? And then you'll have a table which you'll lay out based on various ends, you know, ends 1 through 3, or 1 and 2, and then 3 through 7, and 8 through 10, or whatever. You'll divide up your game into the ends, and you'll create your end plan. So, and you'll already know, all right, if we're in the fifth end, we're down 2, this is what we're going to do. This is the approach that we're going to take. We're going to take an aggressive approach or a conservative approach. And so there's basically 4 various tactical plans that you can take. You can take a very aggressive, conservative, or very conservative approaches in your tactical plans. So you need to know the game plan. So then after you have the strategic profile of your team, then you'll have a game plan, and then you can create your end plans. And so within each end plan is when you're going to start creating your tactical plans. And those are including your shot selections, right? And so before a skip even starts making shot selections, they've already thought about all of those other things, and they've trained for all of those other things, and they know exactly what approach they're going to be taking based on the different scenarios. And so you may see some of these high-level teams making shot selections so quickly, and you think, oh man, they're just geniuses and they know everything about curling, but that's not really the case. They've just done their planning, their pre-game planning, they're practicing, they're training, and so it's just, for them, it's like going to a factory, you know, just working on the line and just putting the nuts on the bolts, you know, it's like clockwork. They know what they're going to do. And yes, on occasion, they do have to think about something in a particular scenario when it gets really, it could swing the game one way or the other. But for the most part, they're just executing what they've already decided that they're going to do. And that, again, that can change over the course of a match. You can go from aggressive, you know, strategic profile, and you're just aggressive, but then maybe you get a big lead, so you switch it over to being conservative. So that does happen. You do have to kind of be malleable in that regard, or flexible in that regard. But for the most part, they already know what they're going to be making, what shots they're going to be selecting, you know, for an end, because they already have their game plan and their end plans laid out. So when we're looking at a snapshot in time, for example, on the daily curling puzzle, it is fun to say, hey, what would I do in that scenario, you know, just kind of being a armchair skip. But, you know, so you need to understand, you don't have all that other information. So there's many shots that could be called. There's multiple shots that could be called based on, you know, your team's strategic profile. So just in this scenario, let's say that we're taking a conservative approach. Now, I wouldn't really consider that so far the game has been played aggressively. It seems to be being played aggressively because Doug said that there's guards, right? So that to me says, well, they're trying to score points. But the score is tied, right? So did they just do that for this end? Is it guards for the last couple ends, or has it been guards the whole game and somehow the score is tied? So that leads me to think, well, maybe the score is like 4-4 or 5-5, something like that. But, you know, if they were taking a very conservative approach, I wouldn't necessarily want to see as many stones out here on the ice. But if they're taking an aggressive approach, why are there stones off the sheet, right? So, and this stone's back here in the back. You know, so there's a lot of things that you can just guess at, right? You know, are they conservative? Are they aggressive? You know, based on where the stones are and et cetera, and little hints and clues that Doug gives you. But we don't know that information. So I would just say, hey, there's a couple of scenarios, there's a couple shots you could take depending on what your end plan is. You know, what is my end plan? Is it to steal 2 or more? Is it to steal 1? Is it to force them to 1? Is it to prevent them from scoring more than 1? You know, what is my end plan? I don't know what the end plan is for this team, so how can I make a shot selection? But I can make a couple of selections based on, well, let's say I want to take an aggressive approach. Maybe I will just come down here, because it looked to me like this stone here, this guard that's closer to the house, was exposed about halfway. So maybe I just come down here, try to hit this stone out and roll over here as a guard behind my high guard there. So that's going to take a bit of finesse. Well, what's my shot tolerance on that? You know, we can take a little side note, we'll talk about shot tolerance. What's my shot tolerance on this? You know, if the tolerance isn't, I don't want to flash this stone. My shot tolerance would be, okay, err on the inside a bit, because I'd rather hit this top guard and move it out of the way and roll out here exposed or whatever than to flash everything. So that's my aggressive approach. If I was taking a conservative approach, maybe I come down here and try to do, you know, the double takeout. They're lined out pretty well for that, to do a double takeout and remove those stones. So now I'm being more conservative. I'm keeping it open, and then I can just move forward and move on to the next end. So hopefully that shows you that there's at least 2 different shots that you can call that are the right call. It just depends on what is your end plan, right? So I hope this helps you to understand a little bit more about how these shots get called by the pros over the course of a match. You know, they seem to make these shots so quickly, you think, oh man, they must be geniuses and know everything about curling, but you know, that's not the case. They've just done their practicing and training, and they know what they're going to do before they even step 1 foot on the ice. So hopefully this gives you a little bit something to think about. I cover this and other things at my website, curlingclass.com. If you want to head over there, or just leave a comment below if you have any questions. I'll try to summarize what I've said, or if I've forgotten to say something, I'll summarize that in the description below. And I'll be making more videos soon, so please like and subscribe, and I will talk to you soon.